And like many people, I have seen the Trudeau government fail Alberta. We have lost 100,000 jobs in Alberta, and we have seen the division at an all-time high. When you fail Alberta, you fail us all as Canadians. Not only is Mr. Trudeau killing our oil and gas sector, but the regulation and laws passed are killing our entire natural resources industry, and more importantly, they are robbing numerous northern, Indigenous, and rural communities of important opportunity that we want to offer. Yes. This, thank you. This is one of the many things we will fix when we elect a Conservative majority government on October 21st. Jason Kenney. Thank you, folks. Thank you so much. Great to be back in Ottawa. Thank you so much, Brian. And what a fantastic candidate you have here. He is going to be a brilliant representative and member of Parliament for Nepean, don't you think? Brian, fantastic. Thanks so much for getting together on short notice to welcome me here. I'm just going to be spending the next couple of days in Ontario. As I promised Albertans in the last provincial election campaign, I said I would do everything I could to defeat the Trudeau Liberal government, to elect a government that will be focused on the concerns of ordinary Canadians, like the cost of living, on economic growth, on job creation, on uniting our country. And that is why I believe we need a strong, common sense government led by Andrew Scheer. Brian, I appreciate you acknowledging the real adversity that Albertans are going through. And you know, Alberta's population has doubled in the past couple of decades, in part because of Ontarians and Quebecers and people from all across Canada who moved there, and folks from all around the world to pursue opportunity and good jobs. But sadly, so many of those people are jobless now, their incomes have been slashed, and they don't know what the future holds. Deep anxiety, and much of that created by the job-killing policies of the Trudeau Liberal government. Yeah, again, and the job-killing policies like their Bill C-69, which we call the No More Pipelines Act. Now let me, folks, you know, Albertans, because they come from all across the country, they are proud Canadians. Yes. They want our country to prosper. And Alberta has been a generous part of our federation for decades. We've been a key engine of our prosperity. And one way we've shown that generosity is by making a net contribution to the rest of Canada through federal transfers of over $600 billion since 1957. And we still contribute about, even in our tough times, we still contribute about $20 billion net to the rest of the Federation. Now, there was a while there, under the last provincial Liberal government, that Ontario was on the receiving end of some of that. Do you remember? When the Liberals turned Ontario into a have-not province, I'm glad to see that's no longer the case, that Ontario's come back into the have column amongst the provinces as a net contributor. But in other words, there was a while there, while public services in Ontario were benefiting from the wealth generated in Alberta. And think of it, you talk about your brother, you all know folks who have moved west to pursue opportunity. And here's my point. We're all in this together. I don't look at this from a parochial, provincial perspective. I look at this from a big Canadian perspective. For Canada to be strong, yes, we need a strong Ontario. We also need a strong Alberta, and we need a national government that will let us prosper, that will let us develop our resources in a responsible way, that will let us build big things like the CPR that united this country. We need to build infrastructure that unites us, that creates wealth, that helps us to get a fair price for our responsibly produced energy. Because, folks, if we don't sell our energy on global markets, guess what? The OPEC dictatorships will. And they will. And that's not good. That's not good for the planet. It's not good for the environment. It's not good for human rights for us to allow the OPEC dictatorships to monopolize global energy markets. You see, I believe the world needs more Canada and more responsibly produced Canadian energy. You know, Justin Trudeau killed the Energy East pipeline that would have taken Canadian energy to our East Coast, helped to displace foreign oil, including OPEC imports, into Quebec and Eastern Canada. You know, even here in Ottawa, sometimes you are consuming foreign oil imports because we don't have enough infrastructure to bring Western Canadian energy all across the country. How ridiculous is it that the country with the third largest energy reserves on Earth is a net importer, or so not a net importer, but is still a huge importer of oil? How ridiculous is it that we have Saudi tankers going into the Bay of Fundy and up the Gulf of St. Lawrence? I believe in uniting this country as partners in prosperity by displacing that conflict energy with responsibly produced Canadian energy that will create jobs and wealth, that can build schools and hospitals in Ontario, right here in Nepean, and all across Canada. I know that Brian and Andrew Scheer and the Conservative team agree with that nation-building, job-creating vision. That's why Andrew has proposed this visionary idea of energy and resource corridors. Let me tell you something. This didn't get much play from the media, but at our Premier's meeting in July in Saskatoon, all 12 of Canada's 13 provincial and territorial premiers agreed in a communiqué to call for national resource and energy corridors, including properly approved oil and gas pipelines. And yet Justin Trudeau is saying he wants to give a veto to certain provinces over that, which would kill the dream of Energy East, the dream of energy independence. And Mr. Singh and Ms. May's policies are even more extreme in balkanizing this country. I can't imagine what a message it would send to job creators should we end up with a Trudeau Liberal government held in office by the NDP and the Green Party. This would be a devastating message for Canada's economic future. That's why the stakes are so high. And if people want to reduce the cost of living, if they want to scrap that pointless carbon tax, it's all economic pain and no environmental gain, I can tell you, we Albertans, we just voted massively to scrap it in Alberta. It wasn't doing anything to reduce carbon emissions. It was doing a lot to make it more expensive for low-income seniors to heat their homes and working people to fill up their gas tanks. So, you know, that didn't work. And so scrapping that, Andrew Scheer's huge family tax cut, which is worth, what is it, $800 for? $850 for an average family. It's universal. It applies to everyone. And other ways of reducing the cost of living. Finally, let me just say that one of the reasons I came out here is not just to support fantastic future members of Parliament like Brian, and I'll be doing, I think, 16 events in the next 2.5 days down here. I'm going slow. Only 16 events. I think, you know, my NDP critic back in the day, Olivia Chow, she once joked that I was, quotes, the Energizer Bunny going in the wrong direction. Well, I'll take that, I guess from the NDP, I'll take that as a compliment. But I'm happy to be down here to lend the voice of, let me be honest with you, the vast majority of folks in Alberta. Mr. Trudeau is the least popular Prime Minister in polling history in my province. So I'm here with the backing of something like 3/4 of Albertans, I believe, who want a positive change in this federal government. And my message to Ontarians and to folks across the country is let's work together. Let's be partners in prosperity. Let's build big things once again. Help us develop our resources the wealth of which we will happily share with the rest of Canada. Let's do it in a way that is increasingly responsible in terms of our environment, facing those challenges head on by investing in technology that reduces the environmental and carbon footprint of our resources. Let's do, and by the way, Brian here has worked in our natural resource sector. He's also worked in high-tech industries, and he's worked on Parliament Hill. This is a young man who understands what it is to create jobs, to take risks, to try to raise investment that creates jobs. I cannot think of somebody who's more attuned with what we need in the Parliament of Canada right now than Brian. So please take But the one last point I want to make, and I'm sorry, they told me I had a real quick whistle stop, and this is turning into a full-on speech. I apologize. It's this. I know Andrew Scheer. Andrew Scheer is a close personal friend of mine and has been for 2 decades. I'm honored to be godfather to one of the children of Jill and Andrew Scheer. And I have known him since he was a young man, and I've always known him to be underestimated and always to exceed expectations every single step of the way. But most importantly, I know Andrew to be a man of profound dignity, of decency. You know, sometimes people say, why doesn't he get scrappier? And my answer is, he's genuinely one of the nicest people you will ever meet. He actually is, and he can't fake it. Unlike our Prime Minister, who knows how to fake it. And I can tell you this, should we elect Andrew Scheer as our Prime Minister, like any leader, he'll have tough days and mistakes will be made. That happens to anybody running a huge government. And we Canadians cut our leaders some slack because of that, which we should. But I'll tell you this about Andrew. He will never embarrass us on the world stage or here at home like Justin Trudeau has. He won't have to constantly apologize for outrageous things that he has done, including mocking other people in ways that you know. And so Andrew Scheer is a man, he is a, you know what? He is a true man of decency who understands the struggles of ordinary folks trying to get ahead, who grew up in a small townhouse here in Ottawa, whose parents didn't own a car at the time, who understand, who's one generation removed from a farm family, that he understands the adversity that many Canadians go through. He wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He wasn't born with any entitlement or any advantages. He is in this for all the right reasons, as I believe Brian is. In it for a true spirit of public service, as a patriotic Canadian and this is a team that wants to do their best with dignity, a leader, Andrew Scheer, and a team of whom Canadians can be proud, and I hope that Ontarians will join with Albertans and folks from coast to coast. J'espère que les Canadiens de tous les coins de notre grand pays va se rassembler pour élire un leader duquel nous pouvons être fiers et un gouvernement axé sur le coût de vie et la croissance économique. J'espère ensemble tous les Canadiens élire un gouvernement conservateur pour mettre le Canada sur la bonne voie. I hope all of us together will work to get this country on the right track under Andrew's leadership with a common sense conservative team. You got 2.5 weeks. Let's get her done. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out. Happy birthday, your brother. Nice to see you. very much.
I chose Lisa. I work for Lisa for 10 years.
Met before.
Well,
Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Thank you, man. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. How are you doing over there? Oh, sorry. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming. Picture. Sure. Yes. All right. Likewise.
very welcome. So I'm happy to meet you.
Hello, how are you? So you're not
Well, I came here this afternoon thinking I guess, yeah.
Alberta Premier Jason Kenney campaigning in the Ottawa area riding of Nepean along with Conservative candidate Brian St. Louis. Kenney in Ontario. He's planning to make, as he just said a few minutes ago, 16 campaign appearances over the course of the next couple of days on behalf of his friend, Conservative leader Andrew Scheer. Stay tuned now for Have Your Say.
trying to smooth things over, and why isn't Doug Ford?
I'm sorry, I don't know anything about that. So I'm not here to comment on Ontario education policy. I'm here to talk about the federal election and the need for government that strengthens national unity and prosperity. It's a message Albertans want me to convey. And I ran on a commitment to help to elect a federal Conservative government. I'm keeping that commitment by being here today. Other provincial leaders are going to take different positions, which I respect. That's up to them.
And Alberta.
So just to follow up.
Are you here to make up for the fact that Doug Ford has become a hindrance to the federal campaign?
I'm here because I gave a commitment to Albertans that I would do everything I can to defeat a government that has driven our province into a deep job-killing recession and has driven division in the country. This is existential for Alberta. We need a federal government that respects the provinces, that's focused on job creation, including amongst our natural resources. That's my message. I'm not here to talk about provincial politics in a different province. Sorry.
On an Alberta question, can you respond to allegations in the media today that your leadership campaign used VPNs and kiosks to game the leadership?
These are just the same allegations that were made before and during our provincial election that are unfounded. Our campaign complied with the rules. We made it very clear to all of the folks organizing our campaign that they had to rigorously comply with the very complicated rules for folks to vote in the 2017 UCP leadership election, and in that election, the members decided. I received over 60% of the vote with a 2-to-1 margin, 17,000 vote margin. So the members decided in an election that was validated by all of the other leadership campaigns, by the chief returning officer, by the leadership election committee, and by an auditing firm. So we're confident about the credibility of the outcome of that election, and I know there are some folks who continue to have sour grapes, and I can't, I've always said, you can't account for the activities of every one of hundreds of volunteers or thousands of supporters. But I can tell you that we reviewed this again and again, and our central campaign did everything we could to ensure rigorous compliance with very stringent rules in that campaign.
Are you confident, though, that no one on the campaign did anything wrong?
I've always said that I'm confident that no one in our central campaign did anything wrong. Our core campaign team was absolutely focused on complying with some rigorous rules. But I've always said I can't account for what thousands of supporters might have done on their own volition. But the results were verified by the independent returning officer, the leadership election organizing committee, the vendor of the electronic vote, the auditor, and by the other campaigns. So as far as I'm concerned, the members made their decision, and all of this was discussed in our recent provincial election in which we won the largest Democratic mandate in Alberta history.
Last week, there was a poll that came out that said 85% of Ontarians would be more likely to vote for Trudeau following Ford's last year. Obviously, there's a little bit of a roller coaster going on, a tough spring, a reset in June with the cabinet. Now, for you, you say you're honoring your commitment to try and get a federal Conservative government elected. Where is Doug Ford? Don't you think he should be honoring that commitment as well?
I don't think he made a commitment. In fact, you can talk to Premier Ford. He made it clear when I first met him that he was going to stay out of the federal election. This was months ago, and I made a different commitment to Albertans. So we're all going to take our own approach, and my approach is to do everything I can to help elect a common sense federal Conservative government. A lot of the campaigns I'll be supporting here in Ontario over the next couple of days are candidates who are longtime personal friends of mine. And I believe in personal loyalty as well to folks who have worked for me, who have been close friends. Andrew Scheer's been a close personal friend of mine for 20 years. And I just want to go out there and vouch for him as a man of integrity. So I'm not going to get mixed up into politics in different provinces, provincially. I'm just here as the leader of the third largest economy in Canada to say we desperately need a new federal government.
Sorry, I have to follow up.
It's all right.
Okay, and with some of the Conservative candidates that have been going door to door, though, they're saying that they're basically having to answer for Doug Ford's cuts. This is obviously going to be an issue for Scheer. And what do you have to say to that? What is your reaction to that?
Well, I would say that it's Justin Trudeau's record that's on the ballot here. Justin Trudeau's record of embarrassing Canadians, of driving up our national debt, of dealing a body blow to Alberta, which has been a key engine of our prosperity. Justin Trudeau, who wants to raise the carbon tax and the cost of living on ordinary Canadians. That's the incumbent leader who's on the ballot in this election, and that's what I think people will be voting on October 21st.
Do you think the Conservative government, the federal Conservatives, have done enough to overcome obstacles that they faced in Ontario in 2015, especially among ethnic communities? I'm thinking of the barbaric cultural practices line. How have you seen them develop over the past 4 years? Do you think they've done enough?
Yeah, I think the modern Conservative Party is a diverse party. It's diverse in its slate of candidates and supporters. And I can tell you that in Alberta, I have the most diverse cabinet in our province's history from a Conservative government. And I think that diversity is reflected in the federal Conservative coalition. I've always believed that most new Canadians are natural Conservatives. They come to this country to pursue economic opportunity and freedom, not to be burdened by confiscatory levels of taxation and job-killing regulations. Many new Canadians come from broken regimes where there is abuse of authority. They want democratic values and respect for families, and so that there's and law and order, which Mr. Scheer is talking about today. So I think there's a natural alignment of values between new Canadians and the federal Conservatives, and you know what? New Canadians are not monolithic in how they vote any more than anyone else is. You're always going to have, a diversity of political views in any cultural community, and I respect that. But my message to new Canadians is, who typically have an amazing work ethic, twice as likely to start a small business. If you want a government that respects your work ethic and your entrepreneurial values, then please vote for the Conservatives on October 21.
Mr. Kenney, should Mr. Scheer and the other federal leaders be taking a stronger stand on Bill 21 in Quebec?
I'm not here to answer for him or other parties. I've stated my view about that. I don't agree with the bill, but ultimately this is a matter of the government of Quebec, and they've invoked the notwithstanding clause to protect that from potential constitutional challenge. So that's a legal matter. I believe there will be a challenge pending, and we'll see what happens with that. But I certainly, as far as I can tell, the position of all of the federal parties is pretty much identical on that question.
And on the debates coming up next week, having known Mr. Scheer for as long as you have, what do you think he needs to convey to Canadians in terms of his message?
I think, this is not a personality contest. This isn't about, who walks onto the stage with the best haircut. This is about who has the most credible plan to address the everyday concerns of Canadians, like the cost of living. And I think he has that best plan. I hope he has a chance to convey those key points. The big tax cut, the repeal of the carbon tax, and those other critical points. And I can tell you, as somebody who's done those debates, it's challenging because you get these sort of 60 or 90-second moments. You've got to rebut. He'll be under attack because I think he's leading in this campaign. So my advice to him would be, don't become too defensive. Get out there, communicate your message. That's what I did, and it worked for us.
What did you know about people casting votes on others' behalf inside your campaign?
I'll just refer back to my earlier answer, which I know. What I know is that our campaign did everything it could to comply with the rules, and we were absolute. And the rules themselves were very stringent, and the rules in my leadership campaign, we're now talking 2 years ago, were validated by the other leadership campaigns, the returning officer, the Leadership Election Organizing Committee, the independent third-party vendor that administered the electronic vote, and an auditor. All of them validated this as a clean, compliant election, which I won by a margin of 2-1. Our members have decided, and I'm not going to be distracted by folks 2 years on trying to distract from this federal election with sour grapes.
Will you make any changes moving forward in response to that?
I think there will be a resolution at our next convention to go to a in-person voting system for future leadership elections and nominations, which I will be supporting. That is the rule I actually wanted our new party to embrace when we merged. So, sorry, I'm answering these technical Alberta questions over here, but when the United Conservative Party came together, I was pushing for us to have a actual physical voting traditional system, and I hope that we'll revert to that, because I've seen problems in electronic voting in the past, and this is a way to avoid those in the future.
Have you been interviewed by RCMP
Yeah.
about this?
All right, guys, thanks very much. I appreciate it. I've got a packed schedule. I think I got
Where
5 more
else are you
events today.
going?
Thank you.
Where else are you going while you're here?
If you contact the CBC, they can share.
Yeah, I don't
Want me
even,
to contact you?
on the 16 events, I haven't memorized them, but today I'm in Ottawa, tomorrow I'm in the GTA, and on Sunday. Thank you very much, guys.
This way. Premier.